One day, a teacher, clearly fed up with the class, sarcastically asked, "If there are any idiots in the room, will they please stand up?" The room fell silent, and the teacher basked in the awkwardness, until finally a lone freshman rose to his feet. The teacher, trying to hide her shock, smirked. "So you consider yourself an idiot?" The freshman scratched his head and replied, "Not really, but I hate to see you standing there all by yourself." The class burst into laughter, while the teacher silently reconsidered her life choices. A young boy wandered into a barber shop, and the barber, feeling smug, whispered to a customer, "This is the dumbest kid in the world, watch." He called the boy over and offered him a choice, a dollar bill in one hand and 2 quarters in the other. The boy, smiling, took the quarters and left. The barber laughed. "See? Told you he never learns." Later, the customer spotted the boy enjoying some ice cream. Curious, he asked, "Why did you take the quarters instead of the dollar?" The boy, licking his cone, replied, "Because the day I take the dollar, the game is over." A Russian truck driver was stuck in a traffic jam when a policeman knocked on his window. "A terrorist has taken Putin hostage. He's demanding 10 million rubles or he'll set him on fire. We're asking for donations." The truck driver blinked. "Oh, how much are people giving on average?" The officer shrugged. "About a gallon." After a heated argument, a wife furiously packed her husband's bags and yelled, "Get out! I hope you die a slow, painful death." The husband stopped at the door, turned around and said, "So, you want me to stay?" One fine morning, I complimented my boss on his shiny new car. It was a beauty, sleek, polished, and powerful. He smiled at me and said, "You know, if you work really hard, set big goals, stay focused, and put in long hours, I might get an even better one next year." I stood there, speechless, realizing that once again I had mistaken optimism for generosity. It was just another regular cab ride, or so I thought. I casually tapped the driver on the shoulder to ask him something, but what happened next? The man screamed, swerved across 2 lanes, narrowly avoided a bus, and screeched to a halt inches from a shop window. After what seemed like an eternity of silence, he turned to me and said, "Mate, don't do that again. You nearly scared me to death." "Sorry," I said. "I didn't realize a little tap would freak you out so much." "It's not really your fault," he replied with a sigh. "It's my first day driving a cab. Before this, I drove a funeral van for 25 years. A man was hiking through the woods when he suddenly saw a bear charging at him. Heart racing, he took off running as fast as he could, but deep down he knew he couldn't outrun it. Desperate, he fell to his knees and prayed, 'Dear Lord, please let this bear be a Christian.' The bear caught up to him, knocked him to the ground, and then got on its knees. The man, now frozen in shock, watched as the bear clasped its paws together and said, 'Dear Lord, thank you for this food I'm about to receive. My girlfriend and I are really trying this whole long-distance relationship thing. And when I say long distance, I mean 100 feet. The police say that's as close as I can get. Also, they told me to stop calling her my girlfriend.' Details, right?" There was a knock at the door, and when I opened it, there was a snail sitting on the porch. I picked it up and flung it as far as I could into the yard. A whole year later, there was another knock at the door. When I opened it, there stood the same snail, glaring up at me. "What was that all about?" it asked. "My buddy thought he'd catch a break when he was arrested for drug charges." "First offense," he said. "I'll probably get off lightly." But he had the worst lawyer imaginable. Instead of getting a slap on the wrist, he got 40 years. I told him, "Man, that sentence was way too long." "No kidding," he replied. "The lawyer didn't even use punctuation." During my routine checkup, I asked the doctor, "So, Doc, do you think I'll live a long and healthy life?" He glanced at me, dead serious, and said, "I doubt it. Mercury is in Uranus right now." I don't believe in astrology," I replied, confused. "Neither do I," he said. "My thermometer just broke." Tim had just tied the knot with his longtime girlfriend. A few days after the honeymoon, he was organizing his golf clubs when his new wife said, "Tim, now that we're married, don't you think it's time you gave up golf? You spend so much time on the course, and you could probably get a good price for those clubs." Tim froze in horror. "For a second there," he said, "you sounded just like my ex-wife." "Ex-wife?" she gasped. "I didn't know you were married before." "I wasn't," Tim replied. While on vacation in Jerusalem, my nagging wife suddenly passed away. The funeral director informed me, "It will cost about $45,000 to ship her body back home to the US, or you can bury her here for $500. Without missing a beat, I said, "Ship her home?" "But sir," the director said, "why not save some money and bury her here in the Holy Land?" "Listen," I replied, "a man was buried here a long time ago, and 3 days later he came back. I can't take that chance." The wife and I took a long scenic drive to the countryside. We pulled into a gas station, and as I filled the tires with air, she asked, "Why do they charge for air now?" I smiled and replied, "Inflation. That's 10 more stories converted. Would you like to continue, or do you need any adjustments to these?"